So I wrote this last night after 5 p.m. I got this book here. And the thing is, it was given to me by somebody who kind of reminded me that when I was kidnapped. They gave me a notebook, and I wrote information in that notebook. The first thing I wrote in that notebook while I was in day 4 was an analysis I did of a version of the the Houston Chronicle that was already there on site. It was the only time they had a newspaper in the area where we were. And it had a number of news stories. One of the news stories it had was about a man who had been in a detention center pending an immigration proceeding for a protracted period of time without being able to see anybody, including an attorney. This is before they escalated their tactics, which I understood to mean that they were simulating that some of the people there, at least, were being treated like they were unlawful detainees, i.e., they were not accorded the protections of the Constitution because they were considered enemy combatants. And so they were doing lower intensity tactics that had already been identified as the kinds of tactics that were used against, among other people, detainees at Guantanamo Bay. And there were other things that happened during those 7 days that were very reminiscent of what was reported in the media about the kind of tactics that were used on detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Sometime later, in 2020, I found a book that was written by a former NCO that was actually stationed in Guantanamo Bay with his reserve unit. Among the things he discusses is the racialization of their selection of prison guards at particular times, as well as the experiences they had in regards to the use of people who worked for Halliburton that were contracted to do special interrogations at Guantanamo Bay. This is important because among the other things he discusses is how he and his unit were set up in the course of them being told they had to go into a specific area of the detention center and disarm people that were alleged to be wielding a weapon and threatening them. He talks about various things going on in the course of his experiences as being a detention guard. And among the things he talks about are references to things that might seem kind of minor based upon what was allowed in the cells, but has significant impact now. It's kind of haunting. For example, the mask. Ever since COVID-19. At the beginning of COVID-19, there was criticism by people who were medical professionals, including people who had worked with the Department of Public Health like I had, and who knew that we were already supposed to have had in this country substantial stockpiles of certain things in the event of an alleged health pandemic. That included protective materials for people who would be working in the administration of services. One of the things they brought up very significantly was the N95 mask. And the concept of the N95 mask being something that had been specifically approved for an incident comparable to what was being identified as COVID-19. And so there was controversy about the permissibility for the substitution of other kinds of masks that weren't the ones that were actually approved for actual medical response to a pandemic. As a matter of fact, there was a photograph of a number of people from the Army Naval Academy, to the Army West Point, that were at a game, and they were wearing cloth, black cloth masks. They were not wearing regulation masks. And frequently, even up to and including the Secretary of Defense himself, had been pictured wearing masks that were not the regulation mask. I contended this was a very significant communication of some sort. Why up to and including members of the military, including command officers, would allow themselves to be put into the public realm wearing something that would not meet the uniform specifications for what they would be required to wear in the event we were actually addressing a health pandemic with national security implications. As a matter of fact, I personally had to participate in training and was actually a part of a group of people at the Department of Public Health responsible for coming up with a training module regarding emergency preparedness and response that at least in part addressed considerations of the triple threat. Now, depending upon your reference points, there are certain concepts that involve the triple threat, but one of them is the understanding that an act of terrorism may not be isolated to one kind of terrorism, including in a time-elapsed scenario. So among the considerations of the triple threat were something that would pair a health pandemic or a health-related emergency with a natural disaster and some other kind of terrorist attack that was orchestrated as some form of armed violence, all three occurring together. And the understanding was, especially after September 11th of 2001, the United States was supposed to be provided with substantial resources to prepare for a terrorist attack up to and including a triple threat. So the appearance of this mask phenomena and the quashing of dissent by people in the medical sector that were questioning what it meant that they were allowing and actually encouraging people to get non-regulation masks as a substitute for actual medical preparedness was a significant concern. In this book, talking about Guantanamo Bay, one of the things he says is that they did not allow the detainees to have any shells. So when they had Qurans, what they would do is they would take a mask, usually a paper mask, that they got from the infirmary, and they would fold it in half, and they would hang it on the fence, and that's where they would keep their Quran. I contend that's not unrelated. But I'm going to read something that I wrote last evening. In this book, that is similar to the one that I was given when I was in the situation I was in that they want to say was medical treatment, and I contend was actually kidnapping. 25 May 2022, after 5 p.m. I'm looking at my blue notebook at an entry for 22 April 2022 that records 3 short-term treasury notes. A, issued 4/26/2022, B, issued 3/29/2022, and C, issued 1/25/2022. The 3 of these are for 912796V22. That's the CUSIP number. I have all the documentation necessary to prove that I paid them, as well as also met obligations connected on or concurrent to these. In my yellow notebook, I have an entry dated for 15 November 2021 that is a number of Treasury issues, both short and long term, going back to May of 1990, that I was tracking since November of 2019, and later that were on an inventory in my finance banking research folder that I was able to get before I was made to leave. I took it with another folder I could carry in my briefcase, along with the case material and the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure Purple Book and the Federal Rules of Civil and Judicial Procedure Teal Book. There are a number of notations wherein I record how I met or followed up on obligations that correlated with the yield date as recently as February 2022. There's information on my thumb drive of specific new issues that are also in sequence correlation with these. February 6, 2021 is the date when I noticed my thumb drive was hacked, and all I had done since October 2021 had been stolen. But I have 2 other thumb drives now and believe that the first one can be recovered and confirmed with the notes in my notebooks. There is a notation on the 4/26/2022 issue about FEMA, F-I-M-A, at 0. That day, 22 April 2022, I found something that is in the electronic evidence recording a zero hedge option dated for 4/21/2022 that I suspected was a terminating option call. Yesterday was a school shooting in Texas, but I anticipated it was supposed to happen elsewhere. The same thing happened last summer with the school shooting in Kazan in Russia. Was yesterday connected to September 3rd and the school shooting in Beslan hedged on during the 2020 election campaign? Most of the benchmarks I met were for or around March 21st through March 26th. That would be the 5-year anniversary of the time frame during which I was kidnapped. They were of one character, but by April, what had happened? April 21st was 21 days, or 20, after the 5th Circuit Court of Appeal order. Like a V-22 Osprey, on which 13 members of the military were killed in the 1990s at Quantico Marine Base. This was my big fear. It could all have been prevented, and the cycle could have been stopped. They did not want that, though. There is a case out of the Eastern District of New York about deceptive trade practices and truth in advertising regarding burgers at Wendy's and McDonald's. They bid burgers on the July 4th celebration held on July 3rd, 2015 in Honduras. I did not attend as an act of protest against what the homeroom teacher and administrator at the school did at the behest and support of the principal on July 2nd, 2015. They simulated cases from the Burger Court, the Supreme Court of the United States under Justice Burger, the whole summer, even before then, without me knowing, including on July 2nd, 2015. I said I would not attend a 4th of July event when the school staff had done an illegal bag search and went through the students' cell phones and tried to mock and humiliate the students in front of them, while the school administrators sat in the students' seats with their cell phones in their class while they were lined up outside the class watching them. When I was alone in the principal's office, she said it was because there were reports that they were looking at pornography, but the student in line said that they were told the school staff was looking for a weapon. I told the principal it was wrong to lie to them about why they were doing what they did, and that what they did was unacceptable. I left that day in protest and did not come for the 4th of July celebration the next day as a protest. Within 30 days, we were supposed to have a formal staff meeting about an official bag search policy. I had a written proposal with me at the meeting, but instead they wanted to talk about student behavior and the Ministry of Education database requirements, and we never got to the bag search policy. It was at that point I affirmed that I was not going to stay the full year. Within a week, they were trying to force drug me in front of my students, the ones whose bags had been searched, in the classroom. Today is May 25, 2022. 4 days and 7 years ago, Bo Biden entered the hospital. He died May 31, 2015. May 31, 2022 will be the 1-year anniversary of the end date of the period for which the audit of the State Bar of Texas was considered. What happened to July 1, 2022, per the information in the Texas Bar Journal in which that audit report is provided? What well are they trying to claim has been abandoned? Bo's death was a hit called in connection with the cancellation of a DoD contract for a project called Aegis in Afghanistan. He went into the hospital on the date that the DoD OIG report says the contract was canceled. He died 11 days later. That's how it works. Now Aegis is being replaced by Burger. Which Burger is that? Do you know what cattle futures mean under Zelaya? The same thing his father was accused of regarding the 1970s and 1980s. 1 in 13, like the Founding Fathers. Case 113. Just so you know, I have both prescriptions for gabapentin and a full bottle of gabapentin in my evidence that I found in the trash or at a train station on filing deadlines in my case. They did a secret swap of the motions in my cases. I saw it happen, and the clerk of the court sent an email. The Burger case has the same number as the medical claim case for the February 14, 2018 conference call. You know, I could not proceed until I paid the filing fee. I never filed a medical claim case. What about the Monsanto case? There are embassy vehicles and pest control scheduled for a bid dated yesterday in Iraq. Really? Is it in triplicate? Treble damages on the assassination of an attorney general means what when it comes time to collect? This is a serious and literal question. I did not replevy on the May 21, 2022 deadline. I rolled with the punches, so to speak. If I had what I needed, it would be different right now. May 15th is the date for the treaty for Afghanistan, brokered or signed in Kiev. I did what I needed to do. The January 19th, January 25th note was dated for the approval of military aid for Ukraine. Burgers? As I said, I understand the school shooting was supposed to happen in Illinois. It did not. I invoke the authority of the Illinois Constitution, not Virginia. How would Texas have benefited from that shooting in Illinois? Via me and whatever they already received in the interstate efforts associated with my reports in Illinois prior to being transported to Texas. Recall the notice first from May of 2017 and then August of 2017 warning about a school shooting. What happened after that? Florida, on February 14, 2018. Same day as the conference call that was not canceled. Ukraine was approved for military assistance officially on January 25, 2022. These May 24, 2022 notes were connected, including an association with the stated deadlines, timelines regarding Russian bonds and the manners in which Ukraine has been involved with Russian obligations, including as identifiable by treaty between the U.S. and the USSR. You do recall what the Ukraine did about its bonds in summer of 2019 before the phone call, and how every other country except Russia and the U.S. responded. Not so dissimilar now, including how the matrix of school shootings in the U.S. between February 2018 and that time flipped or rotated 95 degrees to the Ukraine. There was a school shooting in the Ukraine right on time for U.S. timelines, just like how the accidents